You want a nice driving, solid, manly car. You want to buy it? Hey guys, welcome to Overcrest. I'm Chris.
And I'm Jake.
Why do I wonder who I am? It's me. I'm Chris.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
Fun episode, guys. We got some projects. I've been working on a few things. Jake and I did some working on stuff, which we can talk about a little bit. I've got a Today in History thing that I've got at the end of this episode.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah,
I didn't
one of those.
peek, but I saw that.
Which, depending on time, may end up being a Drivers Club thing only. If we run over on the other stuff, otherwise we'll roll through it. I have a lot to talk about. There's been a lot going on.
You have as much to talk about as you do cars in your driveway.
Yes, which is too many. Too many. But before we get to that, what have you got for us?
Yeah, let's take a minute to talk about FCP Euro. They are, of course, an online retailer of OEM, genuine aftermarket, and performance parts for European cars, from BMW to Porsche, Volvo, Volkswagen, more. Their catalog is a one-stop shop with over 275,000 unique products, growing every single day, I would say.
Yeah, they've got
Maybe
their main
warehouse. There's a lot.
And then I found out that there's like, we're looking through. We could go back in the main when we were doing the Scirocco stuff, right?
Right.
They'd be like, they taught me how their system works. It's so organized. Obviously, obviously it's organized. They don't want to be going, hey, where's that clutch? I don't know. It's probably no. It's all organized by bin and row and everything. But then I find out that part is in this other warehouse. I'm like, it's in the other warehouse. I don't know if I didn't get to go over there, that one, but I'm guessing it's just like enormous building.
Is in the warehouse?
Yeah, exactly. What else is in the warehouse? Yeah, it's a 250 GTO. No. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, they, of course, also have their lifetime replacement guarantee, which everything they sell is backed by, even wear items like wiper blades, brake pads, oil filters. And, of course, beyond the warehouse and secret warehouse, they have another warehouse in Mesa, Arizona now. So now they're shipping parts from both coasts, serving most of the country in 3 days or less with free shipping. And, of course, we have been working with them, obviously, to Chris's testament, for a long time. They're super organized, they're passionate, they're awesome, and they're real people that love what we do and care about the customer and putting them first. So check them out today.
By we mean you. We are right. You. We're you. We're you. Jake and I are you. You are us. One big happy family. FCP cares. Yeah. No, you don't like this?
I don't want to be lumped in with you, that I am you.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, no.
Well,
not doing that.
Definitely.
Anyways, FCPEuro.com. Free shipping, any order over $49.
Yes, and I used my first lifetime warranty. We can roll right into this. Before we roll into this, Drivers Club, support this show. Overcrestproductions.com/Drivers Club. All kinds of cool stuff you can get. Prints, t-shirts, and we love you.
Sometimes you're first to know about things.
Yes, you will be the first
that may or may not be coming up.
Yes, especially.
Now might be a good time to stop freeloading. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Wink, wink, freeloading. I love that. Okay, so I did my overcrestproductions.com/Drivers Club. Support the show. Please help us out. Okay, so I had my first warranty replacement with FCP.
Okay.
So I went out from them, I bought they're not a manufacturer of the product, so this is not a hate on FCP, but I got this vacuum pump from Hella. It's a Hella vacuum pump for my Trooper.
Right, because
which is a TDI.
Diesel. Yeah, yes. You needed that for your.
And diesels don't do what, Jake?
They don't do vacuum well.
Why don't they do vacuum?
Because there's no throttle plate, Chris. Where are you pulling vacuum from?
There's no vacuum. So they would normally have a vacuum pump, which is like a little diaphragm that runs off the cam. It's like, and it pulls vacuum, and that's how vacuum is used for the brakes, for example.
A multitude of systems.
Yeah, brakes are important.
Yeah.
Brakes are very important. Some cars will use it for their HVAC to like move flaps back and forth.
Those are the worst. Well, no, the vacuum operated like windows, like where everything is vacuum operated. That's the worst.
That's not good. Vacuum diaphragms and stuff like that are very reliable as long as the lines going to things and the diaphragm stay intact. And I think they get a bad rap. And yes, because people are complaining that their vacuum operated system from 1985 is no longer working.
Right.
That was 40 years ago.
That being said, yes, I understand. That being said, wiring generally, aside from like corrosion or rodents or something, will stay intact and operate and doesn't need to be like.
Yeah, but you're assuming things are moving like a blower motor. When you have like an actuator, I guess it would be like a magnet operated actuator or like a motor that turns.
Right.
They're not being used very much. And when these things are not used very much, grease goes bad and they fail too. So
I would still always rather have an electric system or functioning component than vacuum.
For what? For like door locks?
In general. Yeah, all of it.
Well, you're wrong because
really? You would rather deal with vacuum lines going to doors and going to sunroofs and going everywhere that vacuum should not go. It should remain in the engine bay.
Are we talking about something designed today? Or are we talking about something designed in 1981
today? And that's for good reason.
That's for good reason because technology is advanced. But at the time, having a vacuum system was considered very reliable because electronics were considered very unreliable. And most of the electronics in old cars does not last. Whether you have a circuit board for operating cruise control, for example. The main reason most of these cruise controls don't work in old cars is because the soldering failed, the circuit boards wear out, things are unreliable.
A lot of it is due to corrosion. Let's be honest. Moisture, right?
Yeah, corrosion, moisture, whatever you want to call it. There's a reason all this stuff failed. So
regardless, vacuum pump, you got it. I'm just moving you along.
Okay, got it.
You're wrong.
I just want you to admit that in its time, a vacuum system was just as reliable as an electric system, if not more so, because the electrical systems at the time in the 70s and 80s were not good. Even Honda did everything by vacuum for all their emissions, all their, they had an entire computer designed with vacuum lines.
Yeah, I had one in my Mitsubishi Montero. It had a little like brick thing under the hood with like every vacuum line possible coming out of it. It was a vacuum computer.
Well, why didn't they just use electronics?
Because they were dumb. So I had to unplug all of it, and either I didn't have stuff that was working then or whatever else. No, it's dumb, Chris.
It was because it was the best technology available at the time. It was the best and most reliable and most cost effective. It's a lot cheaper to make a little electronic or a little vacuum diaphragm to open your heater flap than it is to design an electrical system for it.
Yeah, you're probably right. It's still not good.
I'm just speaking from at the time, right? Now, I don't want to deal with broken vacuum because one thing fails in this system and then half the system doesn't work.
Well, yeah, because you have a vacuum leak.
So there's check valves and stuff like this. And there's check valves around and, things that help prevent these systems from causing a total system failure. Because what will happen is your door locks, these old Mercedes diesels are so hilarious. Like the diaphragm in your door lock quits working. And then when you turn the key off, the car doesn't
won't start. Yeah, exactly.
It won't shut off because it's all vacuum and then there's a leak.
So dumb. It's so dumb. All right.
But it didn't work for like 30, 40 years. Anyway, so I had to, because my engine does not belong in my truck, where it ended up sitting is so close to the firewall that I was not able to run the mechanical vacuum pump on the back of the motor.
That was on the motor, yeah.
So I bought a block-off plate, but then I need to have vacuum to run my brakes.
Right.
And I need vacuum for the turbo system because the N75 valve needs vacuum to operate. All right. So normally an N75, which controls your wastegate, right? That's on a 1.8T, runs off the vacuum of the engine. But I don't have one of those. I don't have vacuum. So I have a vacuum pump, which I went and got off. I was at the junkyard and I'm looking at all these Volkswagens because I know that they have vacuum pumps. Electric ones. Mark IVs do.
Got it. That's what I was going to ask. Is this like a standalone electric unit or is it a mechanical belt?
And they'll have a little reservoir. It's like a little black ball.
The little, exactly.
Yep. And I should really get one of those because my vacuum pump runs all the time.
You need a vacuum reservoir. And I think that could be a whole like design study in itself. Different manufacturers and how they used vacuum reservoirs and where they put them and how they design them. Because some are bizarre. Like the Volkswagen egg crate where it's like 30 just little balls on like a big plate. That's
they have to maintain structural integrity. And then they need a certain amount of air volume to be inside these vacuum things. So they can't just do a giant sphere like this because it wouldn't fit anywhere. So they essentially flatten it out and make
it's all packaging restrictions. But it's hilarious because like you open the hood of the rally van and what's there? It's just a giant bulbous vacuum ball. Like a sphere.
Usually
literally a sphere.
It's like an elastic thing just like stuck to the hood half the time too with like a bungee cord. And that's factory. That's the way that it was. It's just like factory bungee cord or the egg crate thing. We always called them the egg crate vacuum things because they
that's what it looks like
eggs, but probably cheaper to buy the vacuum system than eggs at this point.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so in like a Touareg, I was looking. First of all, have you ever seen like a transfer case and a transmission from a Touareg laying on the floor at the junkyard?
I imagine they're big.
Immense. Anyway, so I step over this giant transfer case transmission that's laying on the ground. I almost wanted to just buy it because I'm like, this must be worth some money because it was just laying. Someone took the engine. So I was like, boy, it's already out of the car. It's probably $150. I could drag this thing home. And then I just thought about the nightmare.
No. Yeah.
Anyway, I go and boom, there's the vacuum pump just there. It's just a 12-volt vacuum pump. And normally they run off of just 2 wires on off, but there's a vacuum switch that detects, hey, there's not enough vacuum in the system, run the pump. So that you always have enough vacuum for your brakes or whatever.
And it doesn't always have to run then, too. It
doesn't always have to run.
Yeah, got it.
Mine always runs. And so anyway, I took this one off, and I brought it home, and I used it all summer. It was a used one. The truck probably had a gajillion miles on it, and I just used the shit out of it, and it eventually died. So I buy a brand new one, put it in, start the truck, no problem, and then I hear the truck idle change noises. It changes sound when the N75 valve doesn't have vacuum. I don't know why. But it's just like, and it's like changes like this, like it's all weird sounding. I'm like, oh great, turn it off, turn it on. The pump died immediately, just dead. Like, okay, great. So this is my first time filling up the FCP warranty form. I go in there, you buy a new one, and then you could submit your thing, and then you send the old one back, and when they get it, they refund you. Super easy. But I know that mine's running too much because I opened the hood today. And snow fell in, and it was like boiling off the top. It gets so hot,
just way too hot.
I have a burn on my arm right here from my other one because I was reaching
from the vacuum pump.
From the vacuum pump, it was so hot.
No wonder it burnt out.
Well, it burnt out in 5 seconds. The other one lasted all summer.
Yeah,
this is an OEM part. They have a high duty cycle. They last a long time.
Have you checked how much voltage you're putting into that thing?
Well,
is your voltage regulator? Yeah, but is your voltage regulator correct?
No, it's 14
Do you have
volts.
A voltmeter? Okay.
Yeah, I did all this already. I even saw how many amps it's drawing. It draws 8 amps.
Okay. Yeah.
So I've got like I've got a box which I can run on my workbench where I can turn the voltage to whatever I want.
I love those. Yeah.
And I can see how much amperage it's drawing at a certain voltage. You can change it. You can do all this stuff. So it draws 8 amps at 13 volts. It's not that crazy. It's not a big deal. The other one just died. I speculate they're refurbished. I'm not sure because they kind of have like, it looks like someone took Scotch-Brite and like cleaned them off. Sure. They look kind of like they might be, maybe there's someone put new magnets.
Sometimes that's fine. Yeah, better than.
But they're $180, so they're not like super cheap. Anyway, so that's in there. That I did that in the truck. That thing runs. I kind of tried to sell it, but made a very low effort.
Right.
Like my ad was absolutely
terrible. Be called a feeler.
That was a feeler. Yeah, that was a feeler.
Which I hate.
What do you think that truck is worth?
Well, it depends who you ask.
I'm asking you.
Are you asking Joey Berditzman, who saw it on Facebook Marketplace and happened to know what a trooper down the street in his grandpa's neighbor's yard?
Let me give you some. I've like a clean trooper.
Yeah.
Like mine, if it was stock, it's like $7,000 to $8,000 for like mine's mint. It's from California. Yeah. It's mint. I've had the frame treated. It's great. It's all original paint. Never been in an accident.
What was this? Where did you get that? What is the story of that thing?
I got it from some kid.
Oh, the dude with the like rifle and the weird family and yes, okay.
The dude, he had the Constitution in the glove box.
Oh my
God,
that's right. Okay.
In the sun visor, it was like it had AlexJones.com or Infowars.com and there's like bullets and I kept all the bullets in the center console. You got to keep some of that stuff, right? And the pocket Constitution is still in the glove compartment.
Oh yeah.
So anytime you want to read it, it's like the Second Amendment's all like highlighted and stuff.
Oh, really? He went through it and notated.
This is serious. Yeah. Okay. And then there's a bunch of Bible verses written down in there and stuff too.
Yeah. I mean, you got to keep it with the truck for provenance, right?
Yeah. Exactly. I always put that stuff in there.
Okay. So a clean trooper is 7 to 8.
This will be a long episode. That's okay. That's $7,000 to $8,000.
Yes.
The
TDI swap is very
TDI swap. The TDI has probably 30,000 miles on it now.
Right.
But it's not rebuilt. It is an original factory 30,000 miles. Because I've had this engine in my possession for over 20 years.
Yeah. A lot of guys, they'll have 300,000 on them and then
it starts right up at 0 degrees. Zero. Yep. My other TDI I had, did not.
Yeah.
I would have to bring out a hairdryer and all this shit.
Do not like the cold.
This one doesn't care. Okay. It's basically a new car. Volkswagen never would have sold TDIs if they didn't start at 0 degrees.
Yeah.
Block heater or
How did Ford do it? Because my Super Duty won't start at
but
10 degrees.
However, your truck has, when it was new, it probably started no problem.
Yeah, you're probably right.
It's all about compression and speed of turning over. You need to be able to generate heat to ignite the fuel because there's no ignition source other than the compression. So if you're not generating heat, and you turn it over, that generates heat too.
Yeah,
that's generating every time when you compress air, you are generating heat. That generates heat when you are compressing that. See, sometimes if it's not turning over fast enough, that can be a problem too. So if your battery's low, I had to jump start it today because it doesn't drive much. So the battery was low and was wonk. Went and got the jump starter, instant starts right up, no problem. It's got a big turbo, new injectors, rebuilt injection pump, new all resealed, leaks no oil. I mean, the motor is dialed. The thing is absolutely dialed. I would drive it anywhere. I would. It's still got some what
I was gonna say is it's a very unique market for the person that wants that. That's the problem.
My thought is if I was looking at it from afar, it would scare me because it's one of one.
Yes.
I would be scared to buy it because I'm like, well, I can't.
You don't know how someone that did a swap, any swap, how they do things. Because there's a right way to do things and do it quality. And
there's a lot of wrong ways that I did things on this right now. Because I had so many projects here, I'm like, okay, it runs and drives. Okay, set it over here. And then I never kind of like followed through on some of the things I need to do. Like I need to mount the intercooler.
You're doing really well selling it right now.
Yeah.
No, it was just hey, basically thrown together.
This podcast is all I'm gonna tell you guys what's wrong with everything right now. All my shit's fucking broken. I'm gonna tell you how everything is broken.
But buy it for top dollar.
But buy it for top dollar. I think 15. If this thing was dialed in, everything was sorted, turnkey, everything worked, I think it's $12,000 to $15,000.
Okay.
Everything worked. Because like just a regular one is $8,000. So I imagine it's 12 to 15.
I don't know. It's to the right person, perhaps.
They sell 7 to 8, no problem. So I think 12 to 15 is probably fair ask. But I got to fix the shit. Right now, this one's fun. The gas pedal, I made a bracket for it, or the throttle pedal. Yeah. Can't call it a gas pedal, Jake.
No, it's not a gas pedal.
You can't go put gas in there, call it a gas pedal. And you don't want to call it a fuel pedal because that sounds stupid. It's a throttle pedal.
Yeah.
Right now, it is held in.
Actually, that's also completely wrong, Chris, because that implies there's a throttle of which there is not.
That's true. That's very true. What
the accelerator pedal.
Well,
it calls for acceleration.
We'll call it the throttle.
Accelerator.
Because I think you wouldn't call it like on the fuel pump, you would probably call it the throttle rod or the throttle actuator. Or I think throttle just means power. It's like adding power.
It's literally you're throttling down.
Yeah, well, you can throttle fuel down. You can throttle anything down.
I'm agreeing with you there.
Throttle pedal is fair.
Maybe.
It's fair. Okay, so
maybe.
Anyway, let's move on from Trooper. I was going to tell you, this is
a fun one. This is the not gas pedal.
This is my embarrassing thing.
Okay.
I made a bracket, and it doesn't fit. It would fit if the e-brake thing wasn't in the way. So I have one screw holding the gas pedal in right now. And I have one of those giant zip ties.
Oh, no.
And it's zip tied over. And it's one of those ones that holds like 300 pounds of weight or whatever.
But you're literally, your pedal is zip tied on.
Zip tied together.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
So I've got
So definitely
and this is all because I'm like, okay, this thing works. I need to get the driven to death car done so it can go to Arkansas. Because last summer was when the Trooper worked. And once it was done, I needed to drive it because
you needed, it was proof of concept, and also just by necessity, you needed it just to get on the road first.
Yes, I needed to get it on the road. And then once it was on the road, it became my car that I drove every day.
Right.
So I was just like, oh, fuck, because then everything became broken or not able to be driven. And then later this fall, the Golf.
Yeah,
I'm trying.
The Golf R.
The Golf R. I take it to the. I don't want to get too much into this story right now for some other reasons.
There was a check engine light.
There was a check engine light that the turbo was bad.
Yep.
And I didn't sense that the turbo was bad.
Okay.
So I take it into the dealer. They're like, yeah, it's going to be $1 million and you're over your warranty by 1,000 miles and your turbo's bad. I mean, what about my turbo is bad? Wastegate failed. We'd already talked about this stuff already. And they wouldn't help me anyway because it was tuned. It has a chip.
Oh.
Which I didn't really fight it because it's over the warranty anyway.
Right.
Whatever. But since then, I've had no problems, no light, nothing at all. So I'm not really.
Did this occur when it was like bitter cold, or it was before that, wasn't it?
My mouse stopped working. That's
exciting.
Hopefully I don't need it.
Because it could have just been a sensor fault, right? In theory.
In theory, yes, it could have been.
Yeah.
Could have been a sensor fault.
You're fine.
I think I can not have a keyboard. That's fine. Okay. Or a mouse. That's okay. Yeah, it could have easily been. Could have easily been. Dang, I want a mouse. What
is your deal right now?
Well, now there's a pop-up on my screen that's covering your pretty beautiful face.
Thank you.
And I can't have that. I need to be able to.
We cannot have that at all.
Yeah, there. I could see your face, but not your hair.
Oh, then you're not even getting me. Like, what is the point?
Without the hair. Okay, so golf has been fine. No issues.
Yeah.
Go to drive down to your house to work on E30 parts for a secret project.
That's right. Yeah.
And the clutch starts slipping. And I'm just like, because I want to sell it. But I can't sell it to a guy with a slipping clutch. I just can't. A, it will be harder to sell. B, I'm not going to saddle someone else with that problem. I have to fix it. So now I have to take it somewhere.
Are you 100% positive the clutch is slipping?
What else would cause the revs to slip up in fourth gear at wide open throttle from a low RPM?
Ice.
No.
Okay.
Jake.
I don't know. I'm asking the question.
This is a modern car. I want you to, for 1 second, think about what you're saying.
I know. I was just thinking loss of traction, but then you'd see the traction control light go on. I understand that. Yes, I know. I'm trying to be optimistic. That's my role here.
The clutch, dude, clutch is bad. All right? Needs a clutch. It's fine. It's got 75,000 miles on it. The car's been tuned for 70,000 miles of it. The clutch is used up. Just is. Sucks to be me. So that's another $1,500 down the drain. And I want to sell it because I don't want the other car payment. I want to get, because I bought the Volvo for Jesse, because I was going to sell the Golf right away, but now I can't because, like, just stacking. Problems are stacking. There's 7 cars here. I'm trying to consolidate. So Golf R's got to go, but I got to do the clutch first. Such a pain in the ass. I want to do replace the Golf with this 24 that I saw was the goal. And I think I might have told this story a little bit of the white M24 that has the OM606. Think, is that Mr. Producer? Is that correct? Does a W124 have this?
Yeah, that's the 2JZ of diesels.
It is. Well, they hold 800 horsepower stock or 600 horsepower stock block, baby. It's pretty dope. So I'm driving behind this guy. I'm just going to start from the beginning of this story. Driving behind this guy. It's a white W124, which is crazy because I've been looking at one. My buddy has a wagon that he's offered me at a reasonable price. Oh, I should get that. And then I saw this. I'm like, oh, I should get that because I love diesels. I just do. I love the simplicity. I know how they work. I'm very familiar. Yeah. Mercedes, they drive for a daily driver. They're awesome. Even you admitted, like that 190E that I had, they drive great.
It is, yeah. It's very good for an old car.
Well, it's good for even a new car. It drives technically nicer than my Golf does. It's a very heavy. There's something about not having any drivetrain in the driven wheels of the car. You understand what I'm saying?
No.
The driven wheels of the car are in the rear on a rear engine car. They're not in the front where you are steering the car.
By definition.
There's something to be said about when you're steering, the driven wheels of the car have nothing to do with your steering. Like there's no front wheel drive.
The drivetrain is not by the driven wheels.
Okay, well,
I understand what you're saying. Yes.
You understand what I mean?
Of course. Okay. Yeah, this is basic knowledge. That's why like front engine rear drive cars are great. Or just rear drive cars in general.
They drive really nice. They just do. It's such a huge difference. Front wheel drive cars are great for just daily commuters, but if you want to be on the freeway or you want to just chill, you want a nice driving, solid, manly car. Rear or front engine, rear wheel drive. Just the way to go. It's just the way it is. That's why BMWs are great. That's why the Mercedes stuff is great. In my opinion. So anyway, I'm driving behind. Well, I assume he's a guy at this point. He turns left. I'm going to follow. I'm trying to do a video with my phone, which didn't really work out because I was on CarPlay, and then it all shit got in my way of making a little video of following this guy. I got out.
Meanwhile, from his perspective, he's like, "Who is this following me? Who is this? What's going on?" Now he's recording me.
there's no shot that this 90-year-old dude or 85, he's upper 70s, lower 80s year old dude saw me.
No
clue. So I pull over, I get out of the car. I'm like, first of all, I pull up next to him, roll the window down. I'm like, I love your car. It's beautiful. It's white, which you don't see very often. Okay. You always see this gold color. You don't want the gold with the tan interior. You don't want the gold with the tan or the black with the tan or any color with the tan because it looks like a lampshade made of human skin. Just don't want any of this.
Okay, yeah.
It's just this fleshy color. It's gross, dude. And it's like always has like fingerprints on it, and it just doesn't. And granted, the MB Tex is great. It lasts forever. It's going to be here long after human beings are gone. It's going to be the thing that
gives us cancer somehow.
But at least it doesn't have rips or tears. It's fine with me. I'd rather have cancer and have an interior that doesn't have rips and tears than have rips and tears and be cancer free.
Sure. Okay, great.
So this thing's white, and I pull up, I roll down the window. I'm like, dude, your car is beautiful. White. Killer. It's a diesel. Rare. Not common.
Yeah.
He goes, thanks. You want to buy it? I'm like, oh my God.
Of course he did.
And I'm like, here comes a sideways deal. Right?
Yep.
Car's not officially for sale. Nobody knows it's for sale. Here's this old dude who's sitting like at the door for sale like this.
Yep.
He's maybe shorter than you. Like this is a very
he was probably the height that I will be at his age.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. As you shrink, you are going to become Marlin. Marlin is this guy's name.
Got it.
And he is sharp as a tack, and he loves to talk. He's telling me all about his life, telling me about his son. He's telling me about his job. He's telling me about selling Shackley products. Have you ever heard of Shackley, Jake?
I don't think so. What?
It's kind of like this pyramid scheme of you sell soaps and supplements, and then you have people underneath you that sell soaps and supplements.
Yep. Marketing level, mid-level. It's a multi-level marketing. That's what it is.
It is, but it's very old. Like this, I remember my grandparents doing this in the 80s. Turns out this guy was like the regional guy.
Yep.
And you can tell he's very charismatic. And he's very statuesque, I will say. He's very statuesque, just like you. He's got like a leather bomber jacket on, nice jeans. He's got loafers on.
What is statuesque?
He's got.
What do you mean by that?
He was short.
Okay, that's all you're saying.
Trying to be nice.
No.
Well, I don't want to offend you.
That was nice to say. When have you ever offended me?
I don't want to offend you by letting everybody know how short
I don't allow you to offend me.
Well, I'm just trying to be cognizant of your emotions.
Thank you. I like statuesque. That's a nice
statuesque. That's what. From now on, when you hear statuesque on this podcast, it means very small.
Yes, love it. Okay.
Yes. So I'm talking to Marlon, and he's getting going, and he's like, I think it's probably worth 8. And in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, there it is. That's it right there.
That is very clean.
In my head, I'm thinking that seems pretty fair. These photos, I'm gonna get. These are when I went over there.
Hold on, go back, producer. I want to see statuesque dude next to Mr. Super Tall Chris Kluel, who's obviously super duper tall. Okay, yeah, he's the height that I will be. That's true.
We're showing some photos right now. If you're listening.
So 8 you think is actually?
I take his phone number. His phone number. I call him 2 weeks later, and I go over there, and that's the photos you're seeing now.
Got it.
And this is after I'd done a little bit of research. Mr. Producer, you can pull the pictures down for now. And I'm going to tell this story, and you can pull them back up again in a second. Okay, I call Marlon. Marlon, can I come over? Can I take a look at the car? Yes. Okay, make a time to come look at the car. And I'm start to do a little bit of research on what these cars are actually worth.
Okay.
And I go on Mercedes-Benz auction site. I go on our friend Bring a Trailer's website.
Yep.
And I start looking around. When we had talked, he's like, they're probably worth about 8. And in my head, when I'm looking at this thing, first of all, it's a Canadian import. It's got blue, like dark navy blue interior with white, which is cool. And the interior is spotless. It's got like there's a lacquer that goes on the wood on all of these cars on the interior. So it's like the zebra wood, and it's always lacquered, and the wood is always absolutely roached.
Oh, sure.
It looks like
out.
like if you ever watch SpongeBob and he goes in the squirrel lady's, I can't remember her name, but he goes in her zone and he runs out of water and he shrinks into this and he's just all the water's removed.
Yes.
That's what these things
SpongeBob. Got it.
Dehydrated SpongeBob is exactly what the wood normally looks like.
But this is pristine.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. I mean, the interior is legitimately brand new.
Okay.
I'm like, wow, it's really nice. No cracks in the dash, nothing. I go, does everything work? He's like, everything works. I'm like, wow, all the climate control, air conditioning, wow, everything works. And I see that's got like heated seats, which is just rare. So this guy was some like cold weather package, Canadian or European import, rare. I'm like, wow, okay, so maybe it's worth maybe 8. Okay, I think that's probably about right. See you later, Marlon. Call him up. Yeah, I'll come over and look at the car. I go over there, and I brought with me the knowledge, and I was going to do printouts and stuff, and I forgot them at home. After checking all the auction websites, I came to the conclusion that it was probably worth 4 or 5.
That's a big.
So I'm like, shit. You know, I'd already kind of fucked myself by saying he was kind of right. So I go over there. Hey, Marlon, Jessie's with me. She's in the truck. She's the one that took the photos that you saw of me and Marlon hanging out. I say, all right, can I drive it? No, you cannot drive it. Okay, Marlon, well, why don't you take me for a drive? And I hop in the car. He lets it warm up. He's extremely particular. He's got a little book, every single thing he's ever done for the last 120,000 kilometers, which is how long he's had the car, 60,000.
It's in Canadian.
By the way,
yes,
this is his wife's car who has passed away.
Oh, no.
Maybe a year ago.
No.
And he's telling me about this and is on the verge of tears. You know, talking about how this is his wife's car. He's got 2 of these. He's got a black one, too. That's his. And then he's got this one, which is much nicer than his. It's his wife's car. This is what she drove. Okay. He's a little emotional about it. But I can tell that, you know, he knows it's time to maybe let it go.
Okay.
Which I find out later as he starts showing me other pictures of vehicles that he owns. Which if I don't remember to get to that, remind me. So he's warming the car up, and I'm starting to tell him a little bit. He's like, have you driven diesels before? We're backing out of the driveway. Have you driven diesels before? Yes, I've driven a lot of diesels. I start telling him who I am. I don't tell him who I am. I'm just telling him.
Some of your experience. Yes.
Some of my experience. Cars are my life. I've owned many, many things similar to this. I am not unfamiliar. I know this engine. I know these cars. I can tell anything you want to know. You know, it sucks. Like, it sucks going to buy a car and you're the extremely informed buyer talking to a very uninformed seller that doesn't really know anything about the car. He just drives it because you feel over leveraged with your information. And because you know so much, it's hard not to tell him everything you know, because you seem like you're kind of being a dick. You know, like, it needs this and it needs that, and this is wrong, and these things and that and the other. So I'm trying not to go overboard with that stuff because I don't want to be that guy.
Okay.
You know, nobody wants to be that guy. It just sounds like you're a know-it-all.
Right.
And it doesn't help you as a buyer.
Guess what? Right. I was going to say, the act of purchasing a car, it is a relationship. And you need to, if you're going to get a good deal, if you're going to do it well, you need to form the relationship.
God, this should be like 2-hour episode, which is fun. I'm here for it. It's gonna be fun. There's lots of fun stuff coming up.
Yes, there is. But yeah, you need to. It's an art, right?
It is an art, and I'm trying to give it from the perspective of I'm very much an enthusiast of these cars.
Sure. Yes.
And you know, I'm like, all right, can I drive the car now? After I've talked about, you know, all this different stuff, we've talked about him owning the car, blah blah blah. And I can, you know, it's also hard to go buy a car from a person that's older when it's an enthusiast car that they love or they're emotionally attached, when you have to explain to them that maybe the car isn't as nice or as valuable as they think that it is.
Usually at that point,
broaching
you
that
have
topic,
to just walk away and say, I
get
think
there.
We're kind of far apart.
Yep, I'll get there.
Save my info if you do down the 100%. line. Okay,
we'll get to that.
That's
point.
good, because
that's kind of where I'm at. I'm kind of thinking, and if, for example, he's like, yeah, I got these Michelin tires on it. They're great. But the tire date code, as I found out later, was 2006. 6, I think.
Wow.
Like,
But
he
to
just
him,
doesn't remember. He just doesn't remember when he put
I
the
got new
tires
tires
on
it. Yeah.
Yeah, he just doesn't remember.
They're almost 20 years old.
I'm like,
but
yeah, I know those are nice tires, but they're very weather checked. They need to be replaced.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not trying to be like, this thing needs new tires. I want money off. I'm just giving him the information, right?
Yep.
Can I drive the car now? Yes. I didn't realize you were such a knowledgeable guy. I know you're not going to beat on the car.
Yeah.
You can drive it. I said, I'm going to need to get on it a little bit to make sure the transmission works properly because, you know, it can hide a lot of issues if you're not shifting the transmission hard. I'm like, I need to feel it. I know these cars. I know when the transmissions fail, what they feel like.
Sure.
I need to be able to do it. So I drive it around a little bit. Steering box, extremely stiff. Someone has over tightened the steering box. I go, Marlon, this is why, and it's dead in the middle. So you're turning from the point that you're turning to 25 degrees in the other direction. Nothing's happening. You have to overcompensate to get the car so it's totally dead in the middle. And someone has over tightened the steering box. So it's also stiff. It doesn't necessarily return to center.
Oof.
I said, Marlon, this is why you think that your other one handles a lot better than this one does. It's not the 205 tires you put on it instead of the tires that are on here. It is because the steering box is trash. Just so you know. I'm just telling you. Okay, this is what I am feeling. And there's a clunk. And I said, when I looked under the car earlier, that clunk that you hear. He's like, yeah, I heard the clunk. And he hadn't even mentioned to us earlier. He's like, yeah, there's a clunk. I don't know what it is. The control arm bushings are falling out of the control arms.
Yeah.
They're splitting. They're pushing. They're gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like this, but at the same time, I'm like, this thing runs really great, Marlon. Cruise control works. That usually doesn't work for reasons that we've discussed earlier. The circuit boards, just soldering cracks is what happens on these. And same thing with the HVAC units. It's got like a thermostat. It's climate control. This is early climate control.
Yeah.
So, and it's all run by, it's an electronic circuit board controlling vacuum servos, and none of it works ever. His work.
This one's set.
Very complimentary of this. It's a beautiful car, Marlon. Few issues, couple dings, dents. Overall, really nice car. We get it back, and I'm like, and I say, yeah, there's some rust. I crawled down, and I'm like, there's some rust on the suspension components. He's like, what do you mean? There's no way. This car's perfect. I said, let me show you. And I think there's a picture of me on the ground crawling around, showing him. I took a picture. He's not going to crawl on the ground.
I was going to say, you didn't make him bend down.
No, I went on there. I took a picture with my flash. I'm like, look, and I'll pull it up here. Give me, if you want to see. I don't know if you care.
We can move on. No,
hold on. It'll only take me a second. I can scroll by all these cats and stuff like that. All right, this is it. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about when I talk about. It's crusty. Like this is the drag link. I'm like, Marlon, that doesn't mean these parts are bad. I'm just telling you, there's a lot of wear here in this steering area that's very bad. It should all be replaced.
Yeah.
And I'm only telling you this so you know. You need to know these things. And then I said, let's talk about the values a little bit. And I said, I don't expect you to take these offers. Okay, Jake, you know, and he doesn't know this. And most people wouldn't know this about me, but I'm very cognizant of old people's shit.
Yes, because there is an intrinsic or emotional value a lot of times that many
100%.
People don't recognize or acknowledge or respect.
Yes, absolutely. Marlon, the car's only, I'll skip to it, but Marlon, the car's only worth $4,000 to $6,000. Here's why. Show him the auction. It's not worth $8,000. Just isn't. And I'll be honest with you. And I straight up told him, like, I will drive this car for a year. And I want to sell it after a year. That's what I do. My offer on this car is $5,000. I do not expect you to take this offer. And his son, who I had met a few moments earlier, who I didn't know had been shoveling the driveway that had no snow on it. While I was gone, the son. And Jessie was taking pictures of this, and she watched him shovel the driveway that did not have snow on it, like some weird thing. He comes up, and the guy goes, so what you're telling me is you want to make a bunch of money off my father? He doesn't decide what the value is, or you don't decide what the value is. He does. Do not bully him. And he's a big mamma jamma. I don't know where
where that came from. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know where that came from, but it was super aggressive, and he was really agitated, and he was right in my face, finger out, horrible body language. And I went, sir, I don't expect your father to sell me the car. I'm just laying things out how I see them. No pressure. I really like your dad. I will take care of him. And this is as he's walking away. This dude is major fuck you. I don't like you. Bad vibes. And, you know, the seller was embarrassed.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. Really sorry about that. So I say, call me. This is the end. I said, Marlon, no sweat. I'm not in a rush. This is what it's worth. I don't care to buy it or not buy it. You tell me. I'll help you sell it. I'll take the pictures for you. You seem like a nice guy. You're in my neighborhood. I really like you. I can help you pass this deal on to someone else. Whatever you want to do, I'm here. That's my offer, $5,000, which I think is honestly steep.
Yeah, I was going to say.
That's like a kind of a gift. That I still have a lot of work I need to do this thing. It doesn't drive well.
I don't know if you're going to get that out of it.
I think bring a trailer, this thing fixed up. Like, it's pretty nice. There's no rust on the car, chassis rust, anything. Yeah. I think bring a trailer. The car is $6,500.
Right. Which,
you know,
there's no meat on the bone there.
Not really.
No.
But I don't necessarily need there to be meat on the bone. I'm not trying to flip the car. I just want a cool car to drive for a year or two and go from there.
And of course, can I just real quick, what is my, you may think of it as just an old hawk critique of Mercedes. They're the grandpa cars. You said a cool car. And I'm just going to state for the record that all of these cars that are cool, you usually buy from old people. Just as a fact, putting it out there, do with that information what you will.
I think that's because there's a lot of these cars left. They sold really well, and a lot of the original owners still have them.
Yeah. No, it is a testament to quality. I will give you that.
What I think.
But I think it's very funny that every time you buy one of these, it's from a grandfather figure.
I think that is true. Well, no. What do you mean?
I don't know. This fits. That's all I'm saying.
This fits. It doesn't really apply to any of the other ones I bought.
Okay. Regardless. Yeah. So you left it. Probably haven't heard from him, I assume?
I have not.
Yeah.
I've thought about going and dropping off all the research in the we lost
producer for a minute.
Mr. Producer. I've thought about going over there and dropping some of the research I found in his mailbox, but that seems passive aggressive.
It is. And
he showed me, he's like, hey man, I got a couple other cars. He's got an old Suburban that's like mint. Dude,
yeah. What was under the cover? Because this is the one you sent me a photo.
I never got there, but I did find out what the other car was in the garage. It's like a Lincoln Mark 7.
Oh, sure.
It's like a Lincoln Mark 7, but it's like
Lincoln.
Perfect. It's in like perfect condition. Okay. Anyway, that's the story of meeting Marlon and the W.
So you have too many cars, and yet you were going to look at a car.
I was going to look at a car because if it was the car that I wanted, and I do want one of these. This is the car that I want right now.
Okay.
It's the car that I want to be my daily driver. Or I would take a really clean 190E, 6-cylinder instead of the 4-cylinder.
Yeah.
That's what I want. That's what I want to drive. So the fact that it was here, the fact that it was a close proximity, it was nice, it was blue, white, had all kinds of things going for it. I'm willing to get it, screw myself over, and further backlog my problem. I'm literally constipated with cars right now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. I don't know.
I think I'm not in as bad a shape, but a similar position where the way I was describing it is I have a couple cars I want to get rid of, but I am slightly paralyzed by the desire to finish the project, right? So the 944, it is a very solid car right now.
Like a neurosis that you need to finish? Like you can't, like you just need to do it. I need to get this done or you're going to have a panic attack?
No, but I'm saying
like
before I sell it, it doesn't, it's, here's where I look at it. Because Nikki's like, just sell this thing. You said you want to get rid of it, just sell it. Great. I go, yes, but it's not, quote, finished. It's so close, but there's like, the list of things that I want to do before I consider it great, because it's a very solid car right now. Gone through everything.
You need to walk the line and balance it between time investment and return when you sell it.
Correct.
You know this. I know you know this.
I think by doing the few things I need to do to, quote, finish it is where the value will come in, actually.
Yes, because the least amount of questions people ask that you can say, I don't know, or there's a question, or it's like,
Well, what I want to do next, it's all like presentation stuff. And that's what matters. It sucks. I've done all the hard stuff that no one really even sees. And now it's all the presentation stuff that's usually easy, but it actually matters to sell it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's always that last 5%. It's the same thing with my Trooper, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at.
Things need to get done.
And then I have the Scout, which I bought and decided I don't like it at all. But
you've got it out of your system now.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't done a single thing to it, and there are like a couple things I could do that would make it much more valuable to sell.
It's also a bad time of year to start selling that stuff.
I'm not going to, but I know also I'm not going to get to doing any of it to sell it when it's time to sell it. So in the meantime, new cars kind of suck as far as problems, right? Ironically, we were talking about all these vacuum controlled units, and modern electronics are not any better because they're so damn complex. And what is
at least you can replace a vacuum servo pretty easily. I can go on FCP Euro, buy the door lock,
right,
and put it in the car, and the problem's solved in about an hour.
And without having to buy entire modules that are all CAN bus related. Oh, just a 2015 Porsche Macan Turbo. It started to act up with like random weird things, and I go, well,
what do you mean?
These cars are like unrelated systems would all have errors pop up, which is generally 100% indicative of like voltage issues. It's like batteries going out. These modern cars are so voltage sensitive. Right?
Yep. The Golf is the same way. Even to have a special battery. It needs a special battery,
right?
Jake.
Yes, 100%. Of course they do. And the battery on this thing, when it was 20 below or something, and I went out to start it, because have I told you that I am Nikki's remote start? So first of all, fun fact, German cars, you cannot legally sell them with remote start. That's why you can't ever get them. There's a law in the EU about it.
That's a European Union thing.
Exactly. So you can get retrofits, but they're very difficult to do, and there's weird things like you have to then put the key somewhere in the car, and it's hidden. So then if someone does break in, now they have the key. Anyways, so I am remote start. Nikki's alarm will go off an hour before I usually get up, and she just punches me and goes, beep, remote start. So I trundle down in my pajamas, throw boots on, and it's 20 below, and I go to start the car. And the one day it was so damn cold, it just sat there and cranked until the battery died. And I was like, wow.
This is not good. This is not why I own a newer car.
Yeah.
It's supposed to just start.
Exactly. And I think the voltage was just below the threshold where it'll crank, but it doesn't want to fire the ECU or whatever else. So I put the jump pack on and it finally, started fine. But I go, all right, okay, that battery probably needs to be replaced.
What are we supposed to do, Jake? What are we supposed to do when we have these modern cars that are so complicated that once they get to 75, 100,000 miles, shit all starts to go wrong, like the Golf.
They're disposable. That's the
I understand that, but they're so expensive.
Yes.
That you're financially.
I really, really like this car, so I want to continue to maintain it and fix these things. And so that's what I'm doing. But here's what this looks like. So, okay, I need to get a new battery for it. So, first of all, the battery is in the trunk for weight distribution. A lot of modern cars now, they're in the back. Fine. But it's under the floorboard, under the spare wheel well, under the subfloor of where the spare wheel well and all the other electronics are. You have to remove the amplifier and the sub.
There's nothing under the hood that has like two posts that are like.
Oh yeah, they always have that to jumpstart.
Just use that.
I did.
Oh, you're replacing the battery. Gotcha.
Right. Yeah. And so I finally get the battery out and I go to just like the auto parts store because I'm not going to get a Porsche factory battery for it. Yeah. And it calls for, he goes, this thing is a behemoth. The battery is bigger than in like a Super Duty truck. It's massive. Because they need to run all these electronics now.
Yep.
And it's just not cheap.
Have you tried? You know where it's awesome to order batteries from?
Where?
Amazon. I just got a new battery for the truck, which is a diesel battery, also massive. Yeah. A massive battery in the truck. And the reason is it's the same battery that you use for your arrays if you have solar.
Oh.
So they sell like these batteries, and it's like $200 for this massive good battery.
No kidding.
And I just put another one in the BMW, and it's $150, and it shows up in 2 days. I don't even have to leave to go anywhere.
Okay, I should have done that for sure.
Yeah,
but
we didn't know.
So that at least got it to start working again. But then some of the systems that I thought was unrelated, the backup camera doesn't work at all. So you just put it into reverse, nothing. And so I was reading about it. Oh, yeah, there is, of course, electronic corrosion problems because the sunroof drains go right over this module in the rear of the car, and it'll leak on it, and the rear control, like parking assist thing, goes out. So you have to buy a new one. Okay, Jake, $200 later, I bought a new one. Yes.
Jake, this is not fun. It's not fun. This is not fun. This is not fun character building car work. No. This isn't changing the oil and doing the brakes. Replacing modules because your sunroof drain is that sucks, dude.
I know
sucks.
It does.
They don't write books about it. They don't write books about how.
No, this was not a really cool carburetor swap or something. And so I changed the module out, and it still doesn't work. And so I have to talk to my buddy who works at Porsche, and he's a master tech mechanic, and he says, well, sometimes it's just the camera itself. And so now I have to do that. But in order to do that, you have to remove the entire rear bumper. And in order to remove the entire bumper, then you have to get it recalibrated, Chris, because of course you do, because all the sensors are there.
So the answer then is to drive something old so that you could not have to deal with any of that shit.
I know.
But the problem is all the shit that's old that I like is going to just disintegrate in entropy and chaos of salt-ridden roads. It sucks.
And let's be
honest, living here,
especially since now this is the wife's daily driver, it's nice to have some things that have creature comforts, right? Like, sure, you can get heated seats and power windows on an older car, but lane assist you can't. And some of these other things that are really, really nice.
Yep. So, that's why we're keeping the Volvo.
Yeah.
We're going to keep that. Bought it. Well, it's new, so of course we're going to keep it. But it's got all the, the other day when that car pulled in front of me on the freeway and the lights went off and it tightened the seatbelts up and slowed the car down.
Yep.
I'm all for that stuff.
Well, I literally am the poster child for like, this is good because I got in a pretty severe head-on collision in the Cayenne and walked away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's definitely a reason you want a newer car, but they really suck to maintain. So there's a myriad of other like things like the Porsche control module or communications management system. Basically what we would normally call like the deck, like the infotainment system, that has a hard drive in it. And it's a literal old school spinning hard drive. And I had to do this on the Cayenne too. They eventually go out because it's a spinning hard drive. And you can replace
in a vehicle with platters and like.
Yes. And so you can replace them with a solid state drive, which is great. And there's a guy, this is not an OEM solution. There's a guy.
Why do you need it at all? Why don't you just shit can that thing and get CarPlay?
Because I love how it interfaces with everything. You know how it is with these modern cars. Because it's the screen. It's the screen that shows everything. You can't replace it with something.
That's another whole problem.
Then I don't know what my HVAC is doing. Then I don't know what my backup camera is doing. Then I don't know.
This leads me to another problem. You are stuck then with whatever technology existed and came out when that car was new. As things advance, like my Volvo I don't need this shit. I'm just telling you. I think it's stupid.
Okay.
But it has like Yelp built into the map system. So I can go, cool, I want to go get dinner. Find me a place to go get dinner, and then it'll go, okay, and then it finds all the Yelp reviews of all the restaurants in the area that I'm in.
Wow.
If for some reason you wanted that, you can't do anything. You are stuck. You are locked into the technology you have. And I think it's a little bit better on something like this because you can still update. But even another year newer than mine, all of a sudden moved into like Google Android-based operating system. So then all the updates for that do not apply to mine.
Right.
And as this stuff advances, eventually you're stuck with the operating system and the system that you have.
Yeah.
You're screwed. If you want it, too bad.
Lastly,
which
I think
further devalues the vehicle and further makes it less desirable.
And it's like electronics, like a phone, right? The latest iPhone. The old ones, who would ever want that?
Nobody.
So it's no good. So I'm not working on any. I mean, I am I fixed the battery and trying to replace the camera, and I need to also remove the entire front bumper to get to a boost leak, which I think I have at the vertivalves, which are behind the front bumper. So it's just things are so hard to work on too. But instead of doing all that, I'm just wiring my barn,
which you won't even work on for some reason. I went over there the other day.
There's no heat in it.
I literally have a heater I can sell you.
I don't want
to
that
put
heater.
in there.
The infrared one?
Yeah, it'd be awesome in there. You've got a high ceiling.
Yeah, I don't want to run gas down there.
Well, you don't want to run an electric heater in there. I know you've got money, but you don't have heat your pole barn with electricity money.
No, probably not.
Nobody does.
I do have a torpedo heater down there that I turn on.
That sucks.
What?
Now, you can't, because when you have something that's cold, dead cold, and you go out there to warm it up, you get condensation.
Yeah.
And you don't want condensation.
No, you're right.
You want to keep it at like 40 degrees or above.
That's why it's cold storage, Chris. That's the whole point of it. but I at least want to be able to see enough power.
Okay.
And now all my vehicles are plugged in down there.
Ladies and gentlemen.
What?
I'm going to give you the visual of what Jake's working on car situation is like right now.
Oh, it's not good. I know.
He has a 2-car garage with no room for a hoist and a cinder block wall that is about to collapse in and basically drop one side of the garage onto anything that is in it. This garage has 25 tables filled with stuff that Jake doesn't even know what it is. He's got one workbench on wheels with a vise that is, if you add 2 pounds to the vise, it flips the table over.
That's the persuasion table, Chris.
It doesn't persuade anybody to do anything because it just falls over. And if you try to use anything on it, it just starts spinning. It's you are excommunicated from Flat Surface Incorporated until you figure out a better place to put your vise. You're not in the club.
I know. That was not, well, at the old house, it was perfect because I had the steel post and the vise you take out of the table when you actually want to use it, and you put it in the steel pole, and now literally it's grounded. It was
great.
Perfect. Everything is set up for the old house, and I just haven't gotten to it yet, Chris.
Putting a vise on something with wheels, banned. You are banned. Until you...
I think everything in the garage should be on wheels. Everything.
No.
You can move it around.
Absolutely not.
Everything should be on wheels. Work carts are on wheels. Workbenches on wheels. Everything's on wheels. Makes perfect sense. You can move stuff.
Absolutely not. All your work carts can be on wheels. But everything else should be heavy, dense. You should be able to work on stuff.
That was a work cart. You were working on
it doesn't work on the work cart, Jake. We were trying to use a wrench to loosen something, and all it did is turn. It was like we were working on a rotisserie. I had to sit on it and hold it and put all my body weight on it and somehow like torque on my own self to get it to work.
Yeah, get better.
Not good.
No,
this video will come out soon and you will all see how stupid it is. Okay, so that's one garage.
Yeah.
Nowhere to work.
Yeah.
No workbench.
Correct.
The heater is on all the time because there's no insulation and there's stuff everywhere you can't even pull a car.
100%. Yes.
Meanwhile,
yeah,
there is a brand new pole barn.
Yeah.
About 50 yards away.
Yeah.
Beautiful pole barn.
Yeah.
With nice wiring.
Yeah.
You did a great job.
You didn't even want to see it. You didn't even.
I saw it. I saw it last time I was there, didn't I?
I don't think so. I didn't have wiring.
Well, whatever. You did a great job. You sent me pictures of it. I know it's nicely done. Above and beyond code. And here's Jake in the pole barn. God, okay, I was going to get to this. There's a lot to unpack here. Let me describe what I'm seeing. Okay, first of all, this is Jake's pole barn.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
Yeah.
This is Jake. All right, Mr. Producer, zoom out. Let's start at the beginning here. We have this. How tall is this pole barn?
Well, that's the top of my C10, the white panel you're seeing.
So it's 20 feet, 20-foot ceilings.
Yeah, I think so.
Jake is installing lights.
24, yeah.
And to get up to be able to install lights,
yeah,
you guys may remember that I was making fun of Jake for restoring an electric forklift thing.
Yeah.
And to get up to the ceiling, he has put a stool on top of the electric forklift thing.
Yeah.
And then he has climbed into the rafters and is using a hatchet to help him wire LED headlights into the garage.
LED headlights?
Yeah, well, that's obviously ingrained into my psyche so badly. That's how this is just as stupid as LED headlights. Anyway, that's Jake's. Yeah. This is one of those things where it's like the more you see, the worse it gets.
I know. And I didn't realize it until I started to zoom in. And I left my hammer up at the other garage. And I was like, damn it, I just have to pound in this little wiring clip. And so I just grabbed the hatchet. So it's like, what is more unsafe than being literally straddling rafters backwards, reaching over, is using a hatchet as well.
All right, you can pull that down, Mr. Producer. Okay, so that's Jake's garage. Very nice.
Yeah.
How much? What are you into this pole barn now? 50 grand?
Oh, you wish.
Okay, so with concrete, probably 75.
Grand?
Well, if you buy, I guess. Okay.
Yeah,
a lot of money.
Closer on the second one.
And all it is, so he's got a 2-car garage. It's literally falling down. Literally, this building, dude, your foundation of that thing is bowing in so hard, it's only a matter of a time before
it has a crack because of some ground heaving that I need to relieve and fix.
It is bowed out probably about 8 inches.
I'd say like 2 inches.
Okay, I will take a picture of that next time.
Because I can't get to the side of the garage
to even measure it. So you've got this garage that's falling down. Meanwhile, you've got a brand new pole barn.
Yeah.
Beautiful pole barn.
Yeah.
Uninsulated for some stupid reason. If all that money you spend is uninsulated, I don't understand it.
It's a lot of money to insulate all that.
Not if you did it yourself with a
get wiring in it before you insulate, Chris.
Whatever. And it's only being used as storage. I don't understand. I think you should be focusing on the pole barn, and you can use that garage down there or the garage upstairs for general storage. Honestly, dude, you could even just tear it down then you just get rid of it, and then you can build your 2 cars. Anyway, okay. Let's move on. We've got all kinds of other things to talk about. We got a couple of news stories here, which are fun.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, why don't you tell me about Onyx, our exploration partner?
Looking for the best app for navigating your next adventure, look no further than Onyx Off-Road. There's over 750,000 miles of trails and comprehensive offline maps, so you can explore without worrying about cell service. The app features trail ratings, detailed information, and a Discover tool to help you find trails near you. Onyx Off-Road also includes public and private land boundaries, so you'll always know where you can legally off-road and camp. Plan trips with ease using the Route Builder and share your adventures with friends. They also have features like route tracking, waypoint marking, and real-time updates, so you're equipped for any challenge. Start that next adventure with confidence and try Onyx Off-Road for free for 7 days.
All right. Jacob.
Yes.
Some cars are special because of their engineering. Some are rare because only a handful were ever made.
Mm-hmm.
And some became legendary because Leonardo DiCaprio absolutely destroyed them on Quaaludes in one of the greatest movie scenes ever filmed.
Yes. Oh my God, this is so good.
I was less than a mile from home. I drove as slow as I fucking could. I'd seen Jello move fast. By some miracle, I made it home alive. Not a scratch on me or the car.
Did you drive your car tonight, Mr. Balfour?
Well?
It never gets old.
Wow. Maybe I hadn't made it home okay.
Yes, that is why this past week, a 1989 Lamborghini Countach 25th Anniversary Edition, the very one Leonardo DiCaprio's character Jordan Belfort thought he drove home safely in The Wolf of Wall Street, sold at auction for $1.655 million.
Wow.
$1.65
What do
million
these usually go for without the movie?
$800,000.
Okay. So
by the time the 25th Anniversary Edition rolled around in 1988, the Countach had been transformed into a full-blown character of its original wedge self.
Yeah.
This thing had, by the way, the interior on these is always roached. Like if you look at Mr. Brewster, if you click on the interior picture there, just look at this steering wheel. It's pretty gross.
Is it actually just?
Oh, it's just ruined. They were not well put together.
Well,
these things had a 5-point. What's that?
I said, think about the guys driving them.
Oh,
you didn't buy one of these because you were an enthusiast and this was like the best track weapon. You bought this thing because it's ostentatious and you wanted to show off and didn't care about it.
Yes. This thing had a 5.2-liter V12 with 450 horsepower, which in 1989 was pretty nuts. Massive, exaggerated side vents, and a completely redesigned by Horacio Pagani, adding even more aggressive styling and aero that did nothing. No extra downforce.
Really?
Nothing at all. Did nothing.
I just realized, too, these are CIS, aren't they? Scroll in or zoom in.
Yes, they are. Yeah, that's CIS right there.
It totally
100%.
is.
100%.
You can see the fuel distribution under where the air flows through.
Wow. You can.
So
you can
none of
that.
the aero did a single thing.
Pull that down. No, nothing. And this is the same. When I say Pagani, yes, that Horacio Pagani, that one that makes the Pagani, which is also the aero probably works a little bit better.
Yes, but also very ostentatious.
Yes. Now, why is this sale a big deal? Because before this, the most expensive Countach of this spec had ever sold for was $880,000 less. That means the car wasn't valued because of what it was. It was valued because of what happened to it. Granted, this was the non-fucked up car.
Right.
Sold.
I was going to say, clearly, I was half expecting to click on the photo And then
listen to this.
Okay.
Listen to this. The car that did get destroyed sold at auction last year. What do you think it sold for?
Oh boy. I 400,000?
1.35 million.
What? Why?
Either way, Scorsese insisted on using a genuine Countach in the infamous crash scene, reportedly because the filmmaker felt that a prop stand-in would not sustain authentic-looking damage.
He's right. He is 100% right.
Let's be real. This was not just any scene. This was one of the most perfectly executed pieces of cinematic chaos ever put on film. DiCaprio as Belfort is so deep into a Quaalude meltdown that he has the motor skills of an overcooked spaghetti noodle, yet somehow believes he drove home without a scratch.
That is the best
doors
part.
are open,
the
car is wrecked, and the man is barely alive. That's
so
why
good.
both of these sold for well over $1 million, because they are now a pop culture icon.
Yes.
To put that 1.65 million sale into perspective, at this auction, the car went for more than some vintage Ferraris. It priced an Aston Martin DB4 Coupe as well that sold for 1.1 million at the same auction. The biggest sale of the night was a 1953 Fiat 8-valve Supersonic by Ghia that fetched 2.4 million, which, if we're being honest, is probably the most interesting Fiat-related thing to happen in the last 50 years.
That thing is cool looking.
It is cool looking. Looks like Zagato. But the Countach deserved every dollar. And
really,
I would have sold for much less if Steve McQueen drove it.
Oh, that's kind of a burn there, isn't it?
Burn.
Speaking of wrecking your car, you shouldn't do that.
Where are you going with this?
Well, you might actually wreck because it's winter. Things are icy.
They are.
Like one of our friends who was over the other day as well, barely made it up my driveway, Chris, because they had terrible, terrible tires.
So I'm in the Golf, which has snow tires. And I'm looking at Jake's driveway, which is like this steep incline. And I can see these marks where someone had been like wheeling their, sliding back, yawing back and forth all the way up your driveway.
Yes.
And I'm like, what's going on here? And it's like, no problem, all the way up.
And he says, quote, what? Those tires are fine. They're not fine. You know what are absolutely fine by definition is NoKian tires, where they literally invented the winter tire and has been setting the standard for more than 80 years. Their flagship Hakkapeliitta tires are engineered with cutting-edge technology, honed on the world's toughest test tracks, and my driveway.
Your driveway.
Advanced innovations such as cutting-edge aramid sidewalls made from actual bulletproof vest fibers deliver extreme durability and come with pothole protection warranty. So if a road hazard damages your tire beyond repair, NoKian will replace it for free. In addition, NoKian offers a 30-day satisfaction guarantee. Drive on them for a month, and if you're not convinced, first come up my driveway, and then you can even return them for a full refund. Check them out at NoKianTires.com/winterlegend.
All right. What do we got?
Well, Chris, speaking of Golf R, Volkswagen, the very company that once told us it was the, quote, people's car, is now looking at handing over its factories in Europe to Chinese automakers. That's right, Volkswagen, the backbone of German engineering. The company that gave us the Beetle, the GTI, and an entire generation of air-cooled weirdos. Hey, how about icons? Not weirdos.
No, they're weirdos. Come on, man.
Is opening
air-cooled weirdos.
The door to China's EV giants. Why? Because they're getting absolutely destroyed in their own game.
I would like to point out that Volkswagen for a long time had a huge market share in China.
Yes.
They did a ton. Ooh, look at that thing. They did a ton. The car.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Never mind.
Well, actually, she was a lot better looking than the car. Those
she was actually.
GTIs are not that great.
So,
they like all the way back in the day, they sold a lot of Volkswagens back when.
Absolutely.
But that was at the time where Chinese manufacturing had nothing to do with the automotive market. They weren't making anything.
Yeah, it's kind of, unfortunately, a perfect storm right now, Chris. So if you recall last month, we talked about how Volkswagen had planned to close down a couple of its factories.
Yep.
But it was basically forced by unions to keep them open. So,
how does that?
Yep.
How does that work? What are these? That's like that's like shooting holes in the floor of your own boat.
Uh-huh. Well,
and then continuing to drive the boat around like it's not sinking.
Yeah, we won't even get into it because it's political too, but it's very dumb. But they were forced to keep factories open that they didn't need because they couldn't sell the cars that they were making. So they can't make the cars. So they can't keep the factories open, but whatever, they left them open. So now what are they going to do with them, Chris? They can't sell enough cars to necessitate making them in the first place. That's where this potential Chinese deal comes in. Chinese EVs have been absolutely flooding the European market. And despite tariffs enacted last year, are still pushing legacy automakers out of their own backyard. So the thought is to let these Chinese manufacturers use the factories that are sitting idle. And I couldn't find any specifics, but I have to imagine paying European Union workers to build the cars in the EU would be much more expensive than the near slave labor that is no doubt being used in China. So what I'm curious about is if they no longer face these import tariffs because they're being built in the EU, and if that offsets the production costs. That's the only way I could figure out that this would make sense for the Chinese to do it.
No, because I think 40% of Volkswagen revenue is in China.
That has nothing to do with it. Think about
it is if they're trying to export cars that they're making in the EU into China because they're not making them China anymore.
That's not what's happening, Chris. The Chinese manufacturers are not building Volkswagens. The Chinese manufacturers are building the Chinese vehicles that they're making in China, but they're making them in Volkswagen.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So basically
why would they agree to do that? The only reason has to be that then they can get around the tariffs.
Yes.
Right? Because it would be so much more expensive. Regardless, it's not a super great thing. Here's the problem. Volkswagen isn't just a car company. It is, as you alluded to, a culture, a legacy, a name that used to carry weight in every corner of the automotive world. And now with Chinese automakers potentially taking over production lines, what is going to happen to that? Now, ironically enough, as you were getting at, half of Volkswagen's sales are the Chinese market right now. And if they falter there,
it's over.
It's not good.
It's over.
And it isn't looking good. Volkswagen's,
I want to italicize this.
Okay.
If Volkswagen can't get their shit figured out in China, they're done.
Yeah.
It's over. If they have so invested in China and they have so much of their money coming from there, it's over. Yeah. They've got a 60% drop in profits in October.
Well, yeah, because they had the market share in China back in 2020 was nearly 20%, and now it's less than 15%. And that resulted in a 60% drop in profits because of the slump in Chinese sales. And
Tesla's facing the same thing. I don't know how invested some of these other automotive manufacturers are. I don't think Tesla's relying on it as much, but man, Volkswagen is way overcommitted here. They're way out over their skis, as you would say.
Yeah, it's not
especially if they're not allowed to cut costs. Sorry, everybody's got to keep their jobs, so I guess we'll just go out of business instead.
Yep. And that doesn't help anyone, does it?
Super smart. Thanks, unions.
No, they're going to become insolvent and
restructure and everything else. They're not going to go anywhere. They'll
the brand
it's just
will
not
remain,
good.
But it's going to be gutted, like we've seen elsewhere.
And the production, United States is going to be guilty of this as well. There's all kinds of reasons for tariffs right now, and I don't want to get into that stuff. But the economics of not allowing these Chinese vehicles to be sold in America as protectionism or sold in Europe because of protectionism does not encourage American or European brands to innovate.
Correct.
It does not encourage them to compete. It does not encourage them to innovate. It encourages them to stagnate and carry on the status quo.
Right. Yes. 100%.
I am for a free market on this. Let them in. I want, other than having to sign 26-page privacy agreement so that I'm not on Baidu's privacy something or another. I don't care if a Chinese vehicle is sold here. If it's the best vehicle, let's have it.
The market should
encourage,
and
market should dictate.
We better, personally speaking, figure out a reason that they're not the best.
Yeah. All right. I've got a little bit of a throwback here
today
for you.
In
but
history,
before we get into that, hold on. One thing.
What?
Would you rather? Here's a would you rather question.
Oh boy. Okay.
Would you rather Volkswagen survive and give up its heritage completely and move into this new fangled world, or would you rather them and have their heritage be intact, but their company is gone?
They are already dead to me. Because, and I'll tell you specifically why, they no longer are making the VR.
come on, dude. That's really myopic.
But like, that's probably not the only reason. But in reality, they're already dead.
I think that the reason that I feel Volkswagen is dead is because I don't see any appeal to court the enthusiast.
Correct.
I see the enthusiast with Volkswagen as some sort of annoying thing that they just have to keep doing so that they can save face a little bit. They don't want the enthusiast pissed off. So here's what they just keep throwing them the bones with the GTI or whatever. Yeah. I don't feel like they court them as an integral part of their marketing strategy and an integral part of their identity. It doesn't exist that way anymore. Yep. They have left the enthusiasts behind. They do not matter to Volkswagen anymore. And
Agreed.
That, to me, is why Volkswagen is dead. Agreed. And maybe you think of the VR6, that might be a little part of that.
You're saying this. We're saying the same thing, but different ways, or with specific.
Yeah, but I mean, the VR6 existed in the Touareg for a while. I think that was the last
Atlas.
one.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not. I don't think the Atlas has that. The Atlas is 2-liter turbo.
Chad's Atlas actually has the VR6. 3.6.
Well, the new ones don't.
No, but up until recently.
They just stretch timing chains when you tow your boat. That's what they do. All right, before we get into my little history thing, what have you got for me?
Yeah, Petrolbox. Let's talk about them. They're a monthly service made specifically for the automotive enthusiasts. Each month, they carefully select items like tools, detailing supplies, apparel, garage gear, stickers, and publications to be sent right there to your doorstep. It's a curated selection of the latest and greatest gear in the industry, and now make for my wallpaper in my kitchen. Because Rhett, my 3-year-old, clicks those stickers every single month and just slaps them on the wall.
Mine are all over the walls and the bed frame of my kids' beds too. They immediately come and grab the stickers and the pins. They're on the backpacks.
Yeah, the pins are cool too. There's actually 2 different levels of subscription to choose from. The Petrolbox Basic costs less than $20 a month, while the Petrolbox Premium gets you even more gear for $39.95 a month. Check them out at mypetrolbox.com and be sure to use the code OVERCREST at checkout to get $6 off.
Okay, so this would normally be a Drivers Club thing. You know, we're deep into the podcast now. It's, we're an hour and 20 minutes in. Normally I would go, all right, we're going to reserve this for the Drivers Club. But I just want to give everybody a tease of the type of thing that we do. We've released a couple of exclusive versions of this. There's a whole backlog of exclusive catalog that is Drivers Club only. And I just want to give you guys a tease of what we do. If you want to support the podcast, overcrestproductions.com/Drivers Club and get more like this.
I'm excited. All right, Tease me.
There was a time when travel didn't feel like a chore. That day is February 2nd, 1913. Oh. Before TSA lines, before airlines crammed humanity into pressurized metal tubes, before highways turned landscape into an endless loop of concrete ribbons, gas stations, and chain restaurants, except for Chili's. Chili's is great.
No,
going somewhere, you got to come with me.
Chili's.
We're going to go to Chili's.
The worst.
The worst?
I would say it is one of the worst chain.
I'm telling them they're going to sue you for defamation.
That's fine. It's no bueno.
If you wanted to go somewhere, you didn't fumble with an app or scan your face into a database. You didn't click agree on a 12-page privacy agreement just to sit in 34B next to a guy eating microwave fish. You didn't have to plan ahead, download a boarding pass, or pretend to understand what a dynamic pricing algorithm was. You just walked up to the counter, handed over some money, and left.
In 1913.
And not through a bland, antiseptic, fluorescent-lit hallway. The kind designed by people who have never felt joy. A soul-sucking, beige-tile, linoleum-floored corporate tunnel where the air smells faintly of burnt coffee and crushed dreams. A windowless, LED-blasted purgatory where every surface is either plastic, metal, or an unidentifiable stain. A government-issue, gray-walled void where the only decoration is a flickering exit sign and a half-ripped ad for mesothelioma lawsuits. Hospital hallways uglier, dumber cousin, with all the warmth of a DMV waiting room at 4:50 p.m. on a Friday. The kind of place where the only sign of life is a single defeated potted plant, which is somehow both overwatered and dying at the same time.
Yeah,
no,
happens.
In 1913, you stepped into a palace.
Mm.
In the early 1900s, most Americans lived in small, dim, practical homes. If you were lucky, you had electricity. If you were really lucky, your house had plumbing. Mm. The biggest, grandest building you had probably ever stepped inside was a church or maybe a courthouse. For the regular American, architecture was function. The world was gray, cramped, and ordinary. Then you entered Grand Central Terminal. And the world exploded into color. Or black and white, because there wasn't really color photography.
Right, but at the time, it was color. Yeah. Did you know people
The
didn't
first thing that hit
see
you
in
was
black
the
and white
sheer
back then?
size of it. The ceiling, 125 feet up, higher than anything most people had ever seen from the inside.
Yeah.
The concourse stretched nearly half a football field long, flooded with natural light pouring in from 60-foot tall arched windows.
Such a cool photo.
The chandeliers, 10 of them, weren't cheap brass fixtures with flickering bulbs. No, Jake! They were made of gold. Real gold. And they were lit with bare, glowing Edison bulbs because electric light itself was still a marvel in 1913. Which, that marble wasn't veneer. It wasn't fake. It was real stone. Carved and polished, stretching across a concourse big enough to hold that small town that you probably came from to see it. The floor alone was a display of power. Tennessee marble tiles, each one cut and laid by hand, covering an area large enough to make your voice echo. Instead of LED screens flashing delay notices or endless advertising, Grand Central's ceiling was painted with constellations, gold leaf stars on a deep turquoise sky stretching across the entire entire terminal. That wasn't just decoration. The artist, Paul Hillau, painted those stars in reverse, as if viewed from above, from God's perspective. A reminder that it wasn't just a train station. It was a temple to movement. When Grand Central Terminal opened in 1913, its 125-foot high ceiling was an architectural statement unlike anything the world had ever seen in a functional and everyday building. Before this, indoor spaces that reached such heights were reserved for monuments to God, cathedrals, basilicas, and temples designed to humble the soul. Let's put it in perspective. The Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York, still under construction at the time, was designed with a nave ceiling reaching 124 feet. Chicago's St. Mary of the Angels Church featured a dome of 125 feet. Even Europe's grandest churches, Notre Dame, St. Paul's, Cologne Cathedral, were among the few buildings on Earth where interior spaces soared to this scale. And then Grand Central Terminal did it for just a train station. Okay, so I had to take a step back and try to understand how they did this back in the day, because they didn't have steel, when they were building some of these giant churches and stuff like that. Before the steel construction, cathedrals with sky-high ceilings like St. Peter's Basilica, otherwise known as the Vatican again, was 151 feet. The Cologne Cathedral was 142 feet. Massive structures. Had to rely on centuries-old stone masonry techniques like arches, vaults, and flying buttresses to hold up their massive vaults. Do you know what a flying buttress is, Jake?
Yeah, you're literally putting the weight-bearing archway outside of the structure itself.
Yeah, so it goes. You
amazing.
have the main arch, and then outside, it's almost like posts holding it up. On the side of the structure.
Think of my pole barn, right?
And we have a picture. Henry, pull up that picture of the flying buttress.
No, I want to use my pole barn analogy. It's more fun. So, but you have my pole barn with the pole structures, but literally you're putting the cladding on the inside then, so you see the posts on the outside. That's what flying buttress is. The exact same thing.
Look at that. Look at how beautiful is that, though?
What I love, too, is you talk about how these were old, masonry techniques. Yeah. That's why, Freemasons became a thing, and Masons were looked on as, in awe, because this was, it looked impossible.
Yes.
That Masons were able to do this.
Yes.
And that's kind of how all of that grandeur arrived.
The trade-off for this, though, Jake?
Yeah.
What do you think the trade-off was? It took forever.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's probably very hard to do.
Cologne Cathedral started construction in 1248 and wasn't completed until 1880. 600 years of labor. The Basilica, 120 years. These structures weren't just feats of engineering. They were generational projects. You had people working on this their entire life, dying, and it wasn't done.
Yeah.
By the time
six times over.
Yeah.
Imagine your great-great-great-great-grandfather started it.
Yeah.
And now you're finishing it.
By the time Grand Central's terminal was built in 1913, things had changed dramatically. Instead of relying on thick stone walls and flying buttresses, engineers used hidden steel trusses. Technology borrowed from bridges and early skyscrapers to support the 125-foot ceiling from above. This meant no massive stone pillars clogging the concourse. It could be much more open, wide, right? No external buttresses taking up space. They could build more open space in the middle and not be in the road, basically. Construction took a fraction of the time. And what took medieval builders centuries, they did it in 10 years. And they didn't sacrifice an ounce of grandeur. This thing was a monument to human engineering. The New York Times said, quote, "The new Grand Central Terminal is not merely a station. It is a monument, a civic center, or, if one will, a city. Without exception, it is not only the greatest station in the United States, but the greatest station of any type in the world." Is that pretty good news?
See here.
Was that very newsy?
See here.
See here.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember, there was a reason that they affected that voice, and that's known as the old-timey voice.
Ooh.
And there was a whole story about it that I can't recall at the moment. But
of course, that would have been
someday.
Perfect time to drop that knowledge that you don't have anymore.
You're welcome. And I'm racking my brain to try to figure out what it was.
Well, you continue racking your brain. Maybe it leached into your hair. Grand Central was the brainchild of Cornelius Vanderbilt, a family built on steamships and railroads. These men didn't just move cargo, they moved America. And the Vanderbilts weren't subtle. They didn't do modest. If they built something, it was going to be bigger, grander, and more impressive than anything else on Earth. And Grand Central had to be the ultimate symbol of progress. The shift from steam to electric at Grand Central wasn't just about cleaner air. It was a complete revolution in power and efficiency. The old steam locomotives, like the legendary New York Central Hudsons, were monsters, weighing in at, take a guess. Take a guess. What do you think these things weigh?
A
steam engine.
Because I'd say tons.
It's unfathomable.
I'd say tons, but I know it's a lot of tons.
Weighing in at 400,000 pounds or 200 tons. They needed constant refueling. 200 tons, Jake. They needed constant refueling. Spewed smoke so thick that workers in tunnels had to navigate by lantern light in the middle of the day. It also took a ton of time. Yeah, I mean, just think about it. It's just a massive.
Just in, sky's so smoky, you had to use a lantern. I looked it up and refreshed my memory. Okay. By the way, it's because early microphones couldn't pick up bass. Oh. So guys would have to speak like this so that the microphone would actually pick up their voices. That's the only reason.
Unfortunate.
And then it became known as that's the news voice.
And eventually they probably just continued to do it even though the technology got better.
Exactly, because that's what was known as the news voice.
It also took a ton of time to build up the steam pressure needed to move, right? You had to stoke the fire, get the coals going. Takes forever.
How far ahead of time do they have to start the engine?
A long time.
Literally.
Yeah, well, it's all timed, right? It didn't necessarily mean you got on the train and had to sit there, right? They knew how long it took.
I know that.
And the train left on time.
The guy, is it always smoldering? You know what I mean? And even you didn't use that train since last week, but you open the door and it's still smoldering and just throw new logs in. Or I guess some coals. And maybe you do start it with logs. I don't know. Anyways.
After this, I
always wondered that.
I think coal. Yeah, maybe you did start it with logs. Then came the electric revolution. Trains powered not by fire and water, but an invisible current running through the third rail and substations hidden beneath the city. The New York Central S motor, one of Grand Central's first electric locomotives, weighed half as much as a steam engine at 157,000 pounds, and yet produced 2,200 horsepower, which is a lot. I think the steam engines were anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 horsepower. So the potential wasn't as much. But,
it was on par.
Hey, the thing just worked right now. Let's go. Even more impressive. Unlike steam engines, which had to generate power gradually, electric motors delivered instant torque, launching heavy passenger trains out of the station with silent efficiency. Gone were the days of engineers wrestling with boiling water and burning coal. These new machines ran cool, fast, and nearly maintenance-free. Unlike the disposable glass and drywall terminals that we slapped together today, the station itself was constructed to outlast generations, and it has. It has survived depressions, world wars, and urban decay, and the wrecking ball of greedy developers, of course. And it's going to survive you and I, too, Jake. One day, long after we finally managed to nuke ourselves into oblivion, when the glass towers of Manhattan have crumbled and the airports have rusted into nothing, Grand Central will still be standing. The golden chandeliers may still hang. The constellations on the ceiling will shine through dust. And if aliens ever show up, poking through the ruins of our civilization, it is there where they will film their documentary about humanity. Because if you had to pick one place to prove that human beings built things that mattered, you wouldn't film at LaGuardia. You'd film at Grand Central Terminal, built yesterday in 1913.
That's really
what a
cool.
building. What a structure.
I was thinking this whole time, even in downtown St. Paul here locally, Union Depot, it still has that essence of grandeur.
It does.
Right? Because it was from that same time period. That is how you traveled. And that's so cool that it didn't need to be built that way. Right? That's what I think is the best part about this. It didn't need to be made a monument of itself. It didn't need to be made grand.
Yeah. At the same time, you have government building monuments to itself, which I'm never a fan of. But I think it's important for civic structures to feel good. I think it's important for them to feel like a place where it feels okay to go, where you don't go and
it's a reflection
feel misery
of
society. The society.
Right.
Yeah. It's a reflection of the society and how positive and good the society is doing, honestly. Or it can be a reflection of the civic. This is a whole discussion. We should have a civic architect on some
time.
But
architecture, I was going to say, like when you think of brutalism or these different types of architecture, they are representative of what the society is trying to portray, right? Like,
or the government is trying to portray to the society, which if you look at like Nazi architecture is very imposing. It's very megalomaniacal. It shows strength. 100%. It shows power. And that's what that civic architecture was meant to display. And this civic architecture was meant to display advancement architecture. It was meant to display wealth. It was meant to display strength. It was meant to display endurance. More than just, power, which is what a lot of like a brutalist architecture can also be used. I think a lot of the architecture, especially in Europe, was meant to almost humiliate its citizens into subservience and make them feel bad so that they would have to be in a society where you rely on the government. I think that was how that architecture was used. And that's been used many times in history, architecture and the way civic buildings feel to push emotion and obedience on its citizens. Just think of castles, right? Think of a castle built over the peasants.
Feudal society.
100%. And that's not unintentional. A lot of it is functional too with war and everything like that. But it's also meant to show, you in that little mud hut down there, that's where you belong. And that's no mistake. All right, guys, that's it for this week. Next week, I
would love to look at architecture from that perspective.
All right, I'll see if I can find maybe Dan Brunn, who's an architect that we've had on the podcast. Great episode, by the way. If you haven't listened to that one, we can find a historian on architecture and design and how it affects the human psyche. I think that'd be a really interesting discussion to have.
That'd be cool.
See if my speculations are correct. All right, guys.
Or maybe you're completely wrong.
It's on this stuff. I'm not the educated. It's just a feeling. It's just a feeling I have. So I could very well be wrong.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We will see you next week.
Take care.